Well, hello, visitors to and denizens of the YouTubeverse. I'm John, your sociable hermit in the woods, and in this video I wanted to cover something fairly simple, and that is how to make shredded grouse. What's shredded grouse? Well, one of the things that's really easy to get up here are grouse, either spruce grouse or ruffed grouse, um, and they're delicious, especially ruffed grouse. But to get all the meat off of here is a little challenging sometimes. You can do it as a kind of like you would do a Cornish game hen. You could roast it. You can obviously just make soup out of it. But if you want to have a little variety and be able to use the meat efficiently in something else, it's really easier to find a way to get all the meat off here, not just the breast, which is easily accessible, but the smaller areas of meat in the thighs and the legs, which can actually be some of the tastiest meat on them, but it needs a little bit of work. So in order to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to prep this and shred it. And so that's what I wanted to cover today. So let's go ahead with no further ado and get started on that. So we're going to take it out of the package. Okay, so taken out of the package, we have one entire, a little bit small, but quite serviceable ruffed grouse here. So the first thing we want to do is we want to cut this effectively into quarters. You want to take it, spread out the rear legs, take a large, heavy knife, move it in right there across the backbone, and just cut downward. Okay. Then what we're going to do is split right down one side of the backbone along the back, giving us two back legs. And we can see it's still going to need a little bit of material cleaned and rinsed here. That's easily enough to do. We'll take it over to the sink in a moment and do that. So we have two rear quarters, and then you do the same up front. You can see where the center line of the breastbone is, and with a large knife you just come straight down. Get the neck slightly out of the way. A little bit of, and there we go. Okay, now especially when you cut open the front, at least with my grouse, they're only field dressed when I freeze them, so it's very hard to get the lungs and things out. So you're going to have the lungs and some other stuff in here, and this is a really good time to get those out. We can just take those over the sink, and they'll just peel out with a little bit of rib cage and leave you a nice clean chunk of meat. So we'll do that and back in a second. So what you want to do is use a little cool water and run the quarters under that. Use your fingers to remove any remaining little pin feathers, bloody areas, anything you don't want to have ending up in your food. So it's quite fast. I usually don't bother saving the neck. There's not a lot of meat there, and you can see what I mean by pulling out the ribs and the neck. Just pull out of the one side, and the rib cage pulls out of the other, and the two rear legs. Usually the kidneys, bits of kidney are still sometimes in there, so that comes out. And a lot of times there's little tiny bits of a couple of pin feathers here and there. If you shot this with a shotgun at close range, sometimes there's also feathers driven down through the meat, and any of those you can get out right now. Ideally are what you want, and there you go. Nice, clean chunk of meat. Okay, so there we go. That's all been rinsed and cleaned, and now we have four nice quarters. And so now we're going to do the actual pre-preparation. So we're going to go ahead and boil this. We're going to boil it with a couple of things added. So we're going to want a medium-sized saucepan, and in that you're going to put about a quarter of a small onion. That's what I like to do. A few peppercorns. Not a lot, just a few. Set that down. I also like to add a little bit of dried rosemary here. I find it adds a nice flavor to the meat. Okay, and now we're going to put our 4 cleaned chunks of meat in there. And any organ meat you want, I usually keep the hearts. So now we're going to put water in here, just enough to cover the meat. We don't really want to be, we don't want things to dilute too much. We don't want to lose too much flavor. So they should be just submerged. A little bit more there. So that's about, I'd say somewhere between 2 and 3 cups of water in there. And in case you thought we forgot it, we're going to add some salt at this point. And I don't really measure. I just do kind of a healthy sprinkle. You don't want to oversalt it. You'll be able to season this later, but you certainly do want a little bit. Okay, so we take this, put a lid on it, and now what we're going to do is we're going to bring that to a boil, and we're going to let it simmer for pretty much an hour. Maybe a little bit less, maybe a little bit more, but let's say an hour, give or take about 10 minutes. So we're going to do that, and then we'll come back for the next stage. Okay, once that's been cooking for about an hour, the next step is real short. All we're going to do is fish the chunks out of the boiling water. And everything smells delicious at this point, especially that little bit of rosemary in there. The whole place smells like you're making chicken soup. And of course, if you were going to make soup, I would start off, I'd use slightly different spicing, but I would start off basically like this, use a little bit more liquid, and I would still cook a little bit longer, but I would shred it very similarly. But back to the task at hand, which is get these. Okay, so you got your 4 pieces, and in my case there was a heart as well. Let's find that somewhere in there. Challenge here is your glasses fog up. There we go. Okay, get those, set that aside. Now, you don't want to try shredding these right away. You will literally burn your fingers pretty badly if you do that. But you don't want it to completely get cold either. It's hard to shred. So let this sit for about 10 or 15 minutes, and it'll cool down enough to where you can shred stuff off of there pretty easily and do it without burning yourself. So we'll set that aside and come back in 10 or 15 minutes. Okay, so this is now cooled for about 10 or 15 minutes, and you just do kind of what you think you would do. You grab it with your hands, you get a bowl, and you just start peeling out nice big chunks of meat. And this enables you to do a couple of things. One is, obviously, you get a really good recovery of even little pieces of meat off like the wings and things, which ordinarily are pretty hard to get stuff off of. The other thing you can do is you can look for any residual feathers that have been blasted into the meat, or a bird shot or anything like that. I don't think this one has any of either of those, but it's good to keep a look for it. Things like the legs, you're going to want to watch out. There are a bunch of these little tendons which you want to try to not include in the final product. So you grab those and then scrape the meat off. The leg meat in particular, I find, is really tasty on ruffed grouse, though, so you don't want to miss out on it. You definitely want to get it. Just try not to get the less edible parts. So all we're going to do is shred this up like that and get a pile of it here. So the wings you can kind of break off, kind of like that, and then again, even there, doesn't look like much, but you'd be surprised how much meat you can get once it's all easily just flaking off the bone. And it's all perfectly good eating and going to be delicious when you use it in something. Okay, the breasts obviously are real simple. They just separate away from the breastbone. There you go, peel the bone out there. And you've got a nice big chunk of meat, and of course it tends to shred out in long, beautiful white meat chunks here. Um, split that up, shred it out, gives a nice texture to everything, and a lot of food there. It's a little bit more than half the total weight of the grouse is in the breast. But of course that means if some people only take the breast, and that means you're losing almost half of the stuff that isn't breast. So it's exactly why you do it this way, to get everything out. Boy, look at how good that looks. There's an example right there. You can see where there's a feather that got pushed in by a piece of bird shot. So they're quite obvious. You just pull those out and avoids getting them in the final food. Okay, there is our finished product. About 2.5 cups of meat. This bird was a little bit on the small side. Let's take it over and weigh this and find out how much we actually got. Alrighty, let's put a container on there. Tare it. And try it again. 134 grams. So here you go, 130 grams. So it's 454 grams to a pound. So this one was on a small side. You're looking about 1/3 of a pound. Most rough grouse are a little bit bigger than this, probably closer to a 1/2 a pound of good meat. But especially when it's all shredded out like this, you can get a lot of mileage out. There's a lot of protein there. So this is now perfect for some of the things I like to use it for. Grouse tacos, uh, grouse pies, basically little Scotch pies made with grouse. You get about 4 to 6. This one's a little bit small, so maybe only 4. Nice little pies out of those, and 1 pie to 2 pies is a nice meal. Jambalaya. This is really good so mixing it with some rice, and maybe if you have some other like leftover bits of sausage or something and some seasoning, and make jambalaya. Pizza topping, all kinds of things you can do with it. It gives you a lot of variety. If you're going to get 50 or 60 of these a year because they're what's readily available locally as a source of meat, then variety is great, and this is a fantastic way to get that variety and to do as many things as most efficiently as possible with it. So hopefully that was interesting and gave you some ideas on what to do with the grouse you get. And with that, this is John, your sociable hermit in the woods. Until next time.